We have some negative-sounding developments in the U.S.-China trade war just days before the trade talks are set to resume. Now, Bloomberg is reporting that Vice Premier and lead trade negotiator Liu He has said that China is hesitant to pursue any sort of broad trade deal with the U.S. right now and will be taking some key negotiating topics off the table. Now, the two sides are set to meet in person on October 10. Yahoo Finance's Aikiko Fujita is here with more. Aikiko, what do you make of the latest reports? Because we know that every few days we hear something, a little whisper, and everyone overreacts. Oh, this sounds bad. Oh, this sounds encouraging. Is this another example of maybe we're making too much of it here?
Well, let's talk about who Bloomberg is sourcing here, because they're talking about these dignitaries that reportedly met with Vice Mayor Liu He, and based on that conversation, reportedly, the vice premier is taking some things off the table. And so I think we want to be careful about how much you make of one report. But I think it's safe to say that we have seen these two sides kind of moving apart for a while. Go back to the G20 meeting that happened in Osaka at the beginning of the summer. Now, according to what we've heard from those who were at the meeting, the discussion was that the U.S. would hold back on any additional tariffs as a goodwill gesture as they continued to get the talks moving through. Well, then you go to August when President Trump slapped additional tariffs in place. Now we're talking about October 15th on the table, an increase of 25 to 30% on $250 billion in goods. So neither side has really been making the concessions on either way. But in terms of what specifically the Bloomberg report talks about, we're talking about industrial policy as well as government subsidies for state-owned companies. Now, the U.S. has always said that that gives Chinese companies an unfair advantage. The Chinese see that as a direct challenge to the economic structure they have in place. So that is a very difficult concession from the U.S. side to get.
So what has changed since the G20 summit is the fact there's an impeachment inquiry. So the question is, has President Trump become more desperate in the need to get a trade deal to distract from what's happening in D.C.?
I mean, that's one discussion, I think, one speculation that's been on the table. Who knows? That's really according to where the White House sees it. I'm not sure the Chinese will see an opportunity to get a concession as a result of that. I mean, as far as
President Trump has said, China, look into the Bidens.
But I don't think that China wants to get involved, first of all, at all in U.S. domestic policy. I don't think China is going to take the bait on anything like that. I think you have to separate what's happening in terms of the chatter around impeachment and the trade discussions. And at the end of the day, we haven't seen any side move on the very core issues that Robert Lighthizer has said he needs to get in order for the U.S. to sign off on any kind of agreement.
Now, if we operate under the assumption that even after October 10, there won't be a deal, what's the next kind of big landmark that we should be watching for? Is there another big G7, G20 meeting that will then kind of be another opportunity for the U.S. and China to meet?
So what you want to look at is in December, we've got the additional tariffs that are set to take place on really the key components, the key issues or key devices like the iPhone and whatnot. This is, remember, the White House said they were going to hold off on that as a way to, I think President Trump said he didn't want to ruin Christmas.
Well, now it's right before the holiday shopping season.
So in between that and now is an APEC meeting that's happening in Chile, which is the last opportunity really for President Xi and President Trump to be at some kind of global gathering to have some kind of discussion on that front. So I think you want to look for that to see if there is any movement. Now, there is another argument to be said that China is going to just hold back until the 2020 election. Of course, that the risk there is that President Trump does get reelected and then China is back at the same place. So there's a lot between now and December, though, I would point out, that could be a barometer of where the Chinese are willing to move.
Well, and just because President Trump did say, either jokingly or seriously, that he doesn't want to ruin Christmas, I also suspect that come that December date, when it's actually supposed to happen, that we might see it delayed again. Mostly because this holiday shopping season is now so pivotal, I think, for testing sort of the health of the economy and the health of the consumer. Almost everyone agrees we would like to see a very good, positive holiday shopping season. Tariffs going into effect right before that, probably not a great idea.
Well, especially at a time where we talk a lot about how the consumer side is really the one positive going for the economy. And so that's certainly going to be a big damper on sentiment on that front.
All right, Aikiko, thanks so much. Good stuff.